Welcome to SoulPrisma. In this video, we will show you how to interpret a birth chart. First, you will need to know how the contents of a birth chart relate to each other. So let's take a look at the contents. There are the planets, located in the inner circle. Then, the 12 symbols of the zodiac signs in the outer circle, the 12 houses, and the aspects that you find in the center of the horoscope. Each of these components represent a different layer for interpretation. Now, let's take a closer look at what each layer looks like. And we'll start with the interpretation of the planets. Each planet in our solar system has a unique energy. These energies manifest themselves differently in us. This means that in our personality, each energy has a very specific function. And to understand this, let's take a look at each planet. First, there's the energy of the sun. With the sun's energy, we become aware that we exist, perceive ourselves as independent beings, and gain self-confidence. Then, there's the moon. It is primarily responsible for our feelings, but also for our emotional needs and moods. Through the planet Mercury, we are able to communicate with others. Therefore, it represents our thinking and intelligence. With the help of Venus, we are able to connect with others, create harmonious relationships and love. The power planet Mars not only gives us motivation, but also the strength and energy to tackle our day. The planet Jupiter represents our life philosophy, gives us a sense of justice, and sends us on a quest for truth in our lives. With the planet Saturn, we are able to take responsibility and build sustainable structures in our lives that give us security. Because of Uranus, we seek freedom and independence. Uranus gives us new ideas and allows us to form friendships. Through Neptune, we are able to emphasize with others. It primarily represents our compassion, but it is also responsible for our intuition. Pluto's energy is very intense. In our personality, it represents the passion with which we encounter other people, or our thoughts and actions. With the energy of Chiron, we have the ability to heal ourselves and others. It also gives us the ability to repair objects. And then there's the Earth. It hasn't been given much attention in astrology in the past, even though we experience its energy up close. With it, we are able to deal with matter, which is why we possess an earthly body. The planets represent different energies of our personality, and in the birth chart, they are the who or what. However, they cannot provide clues about an individual's personality, because we all have these 12 planets in our horoscope. To find out more about a personality, another layer is needed, such as the zodiac signs. Here you can see the planets again, with their keyword next to them. This time, however, in a different order, and I show you why now. The zodiac signs are derived from the planets. This means that each zodiac sign belongs to a planet and describes the how of that planet. Let's start with Aries, where the focus is on being motivated, just like Mars. The Taurus zodiac sign is materialistic, as it is related to earth and matter. This pattern continues with the other zodiac signs. Gemini, for example, is communicative because it is related to Mercury, which is all about communication. Cancer is very emotional because the moon is related to emotions. And Leo is usually confident because the sun is related to self-confidence. Virgo is about healing, while Libra is very sociable and loving because it belongs to Venus and the need for love and contact. Scorpio is usually passionate because it belongs to Pluto, which is associated with our passions and desires. Sagittarius is philosophical, just as Jupiter represents our life philosophy. Capricorn is usually responsible, as it is related to Saturn. Aquarius is associated with freedom and being liberal, because it is related to Uranus. And Pisces is often very compassionate, because it is connected to Neptune and our compassion and empathy. This way you can see that it's actually quite easy to understand the zodiac signs through knowing the meaning of the planets. Let's run through a few examples of interpretations, so you can see how to apply it. Imagine that the planet Mercury is in the sign of Cancer in a birth chart. Then we can assume that this is a person with an emotional communication. Here's another example. If the moon is in the sign of Scorpio, then we can assume that this is a person with passionate emotions. If Venus is in the zodiac sign of Capricorn, then it will be a person with a need for responsible love, or someone who encounters other people very responsible. In George Clooney's birth chart, the arrow points to the moon, which is in the zodiac sign of Capricorn. Therefore, it can be assumed that George Clooney is a person with, in particular, responsible emotions. If we look at his Mercury, which is in Taurus, we discover that his communication and thinking probably revolves around the topic of material things, such as money, quite often. To summarize, the zodiac signs describe how the energies of the planets unfold in a person's personality. In a birth chart, they represent the how. The next layer of birth chart interpretation comes through the houses. Just as the zodiac signs are derived from the planets, the houses are also related. So let's take a look at the first house. If Mars is about motivation and Aries is about being motivated, then the first house is about one's own assertiveness, which also means enforcement and willpower. The second house is all about values. This is fitting for the Earth, where it is all about material things, and for Taurus, where it's all about material possessions. The second house deals with everything we possess. The third house concerns our thinking, and therefore belongs to the planet Mercury, which represents communication and thinking. The 4th house describes our emotional needs, fittingly represented by the moon and our feelings, and Cancer being emotional. The 5th house is the area of our self-expression. If the Sun represents our self-confidence, then the 5th house is particularly concerned with how we present ourselves. The next house is the house of work, but also of health. It is fittingly represented by Chiron and its potential for healing. The 7th house describes our encounters and partnership, and corresponds to Venus and our need for contact and love. The 8th house is about commitments, just as Pluto is about the passion with which we encounter other people or things. The 9th house belongs to Jupiter and life philosophy. Therefore, we find our worldview primarily in this house. In the 10th house, we find our profession, our calling, and our career. It belongs to Saturn, with which we take responsibility and build security in life. In the 11th house, we primarily find our friendships, fittingly represented by Uranus, which represents freedom, because we enter into friendships voluntarily. And in the 12th house, we find our sense of community, fittingly represented by Neptune, which represents our compassion. Let's return to our interpretation examples and assume that Mercury in Cancer may be in the 1st house. We see that this is a person with emotional communication who also tries to assert themselves with it. Looking at the moon in Scorpio again, placed for example in the 6th house, we see that this is a person who has passionate feelings, which they can primarily express in their work. In George Clooney's birth chart, his moon is in Capricorn and in the 11th house. Here you can assume that his responsible feelings are directed towards his friends. However, this Mercury in the 2nd house indicates that his thinking and communication will often revolve around material values. Let's summarize that briefly. We can say that each house describes a different area of a person's life. That's why in a birth chart, the houses are therefore the where, meaning which area of life. Now it's time to move on to the last layer of meaning in the birth chart, the aspects. For this, we take a look directly at George Clooney's birth chart. The flashing line in the middle shows a connection between the moon and Mercury. This means that his responsible feelings, which he shares with his friends, and his material thinking unite in his personality. This is revealed in the fact that he has launched many generous charity organizations with some colleagues and donated money to a few of his close friends. Aspects connect planets in the horoscope with each other and therefore also some parts of our personality. These connections can be harmonious and represent potential, or they can be challenging and reveal inner conflicts. For a final summary, the planets in the horoscope show us the what, meaning which aspect of our personality is being addressed. The zodiac signs show us the how, meaning how the energies of the planets manifest in us, how the personality aspects behave. The houses show us the where, meaning in which area of life the energies manifest. and the aspects show the connection of the whole. We hope you enjoyed this SoulPrisma video and say, as always, see you soon.